Today we're going to take a closer look at one of the coolest new Honda Goldwings I've stumbled across. This bike not only has some cool bolt-on goodies that anyone can buy, but more importantly, some worn-off pieces that came from the imagination of a local legend here in the Southeast, Charlie Brown. Now this isn't his first rodeo, as he's been modifying motorcycles and taking them to shows well before a lot of us were even alive, and sadly, it all started for him back in a day and age where he wasn't really welcome, but we'll dive more into that in a future video, as he's got some pretty interesting stories to tell on how he got his foot in the door and how he's been collecting trophies ever since. With that being said, let's dive into some of the details on this wing. And first up, we've got the crazy seat built by Ultimate Seats, with Charlie drawing it up with how he wanted it and sending the design over to them. Now they kinda doubted how it would all come together with the mixture of Java Croc, black ostrich, and ginseng brown leather, but like I said earlier, this isn't his first rodeo and I may be a bit biased here, but I think it turned out awesome without being too overdone and taking away from the bike. Is it everyone's cup of tea? Of course not, but without a doubt, it's one of the first things to catch your eye on this motorcycle. Then we've got something you'll see sprinkled all around the bike, and that's these little chrome accent strips that come in a big roll, and then Charlie gets to work on heating them up and forming them to the shape he's looking for, with them being used on the Goldstrike passenger floorboards for a little extra flair, and it's the same story with the bottom of the saddlebags too, to highlight that body line. He did the same thing with the surrounding edge of the gauge display, but my favorite spot he sprinkled his magic with this trim though is on the intake manifold cover that hides your fuel injectors and all of that fun stuff. Followed up by the fog light and valve cover trim that he had painted to match the factory Pearl Stallion brown paint. And yes, this color isn't everyone's cup of tea either, but you've got to see it in person under different types of lighting to really appreciate it. Does it look good on every bike Honda's thrown it on? Nope. But I think it's perfect on the wing. And that factory paint, with the help of Charlie's famous detail work when it comes to shining bikes and cars up, ended up taking home the award for best paint, among other trophies, at the 2023 World of Wheels show here in Chattanooga. Now before we move away from the valve covers, the gold badging you see there and sprinkled around the bike were borrowed from a 2003 Goldwing to help tie the whole color scheme together instead of the usual chrome or black badging. Then we've got some goodies that he borrowed from the sport bike crowd with these mesh grills. Charlie took the factory pieces behind the vents, made a paper template, and went to work forming the grills to work in the rear right before the saddlebags and on the front fender too, which really pop and look like they should have been there from the factory. His creativity didn't stop there though. He also stumbled across some jewelry at Walmart. What? Yeah, Walmart.
So please tell me more.
That got his wheels turning, and they just so happen to be the perfect size to throw in the Goldstrike fork covers where your axle bolt would normally be, and he didn't stop there, as it also worked perfectly on the ignition knob to help sprinkle a little more bling on the wing.
You see what I did there?
Yes, I did.
And speaking of bling, if those chrome accents up front with what we've already covered and those show chrome brake caliper covers weren't enough, you've got a set of chrome wheels done by Advanced Plating in Nashville, and man oh man does it really tie the whole bike together and make it pop a lot more than the blacked out trim that Honda used on this bike in its stock form, especially when you pair it up with the other chrome goodies around this bike, like these chrome boomerangs from Kuryakyn, and he also went with their engine covers too, where he had the vents painted to match. Followed up by some more Goldwing accessories from Goldstrike with these side fairing radiator grills with LED lights to help a little bit with visibility, or should I say lack thereof, as we all know too well, sadly, that the usual excuse when you're almost ran over on your bike is, "Oh, I didn't see you." And we've got a few more goodies from Goldstrike too, with these grills to dress up the dash a bit more, and side mirror, turn signal trim pieces too, which add a nice subtle touch and help tie it in with everything else. And speaking of tying things together, out back you may notice that the rubber inserts for the cargo rack out back are missing, and that's because Charlie had a local trophy shop cut brass inserts to fit in there. Plus he also popped out the little black plastic inserts by the passenger grab handles to do the same thing. Now that's just a quick taste of some of the modifications done to this bike, as it would take an hour to break down everything, but if you'd like to learn more about it and or some of Charlie's other bikes in his collection, as well as some stories told by the man himself from over the decades, let me know down in the comments section. I can't say thanks enough to Charlie for trusting me with his baby to shoot this video, and thank you guys for watching, but on that note, we'll see you guys in the next one.